Welcome to the Kingmakers podcast. Kingmakers is an accelerator for business buyers. We help entrepreneurs acquire their ideal business and provide them with the tools to succeed post-acquisition. I'm your host, Kylan Ginger. Join us as we explore and unlock the secrets to successful business acquisition, growth, and exiting strategies. Hey guys, so if you're enjoying the podcast and you want to take the next step in your business buying journey, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. First, check out our business buying workshop. The Kingmakers Workshop will give you a backstage pass to a private equity firm that acquires and operates 6+ new businesses per year. This is an opportunity for you to peek behind the curtain and understand the entire process of finding, buying, and growing an online business. The workshop is limited to a small amount of serious business buyers, so you can count on it being intimate and you can plan on spending plenty of one-on-one time with some of the best and brightest entrepreneurs in the M&A space. So go to kingmakers.co/workshop. Again, that's kingmakers.co/workshop to get more information and to apply. Second, if you are serious about buying a business, I would love to have a quick chat with you and see how we can help. Go to kingmakers.co/call, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then you can schedule a free consultation call, and we'll see what we can do. Again, that's kingmakers.co/call. Talk to you soon. Hello, business buyers, and welcome to another Kingmakers episode. Get excited because today on the show we have our co-founder, Hayden Miyamoto, who you probably remember back from episode 1. In addition to being the co-founder of Kingmakers, Hayden is the founder of No Hat Digital and co-founder of Wired Investors. He's built and scaled several 6- and 7-figure businesses and has deep experience developing systems to scale these web assets. Hayden, man, it's good to have you back.
Thanks, good to be back.
So how's life going on down there in Mexico?
Yeah, everything's good. Rainy season just started, which is good because we had a very dry season and there were a lot of forest fires everywhere. Apparently people in Mexico City couldn't even leave their houses because of pollution.
Oh, geez.
Everyone's welcoming the rain.
Yeah, I bet. How long does rainy season typically last there?
Usually starts around June and ends in like September, October. So it's a decent amount of time.
And what are we talking about here? I mean, I'm up close to Seattle where it does rain a lot, but I don't feel like it rains super like heavy. We're talking like more heavy rain down there or just sort of light, consistent.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it monsoon, but it's probably close to that. It rains like clockwork. So like every day around this time, say anytime between, let's say 2 and 4 p.m., it starts raining and it rains really, really hard for like 2 or 3 hours. And then it doesn't rain again until usually it rains overnight. I live in the middle of a forest, and it gets pretty nuts sometimes. So yeah, it'll like the sky just kind of turns orange, and then like trees are flying everywhere. And man, last rainy season, all of a sudden, like raining really, really hard, and all of a sudden, my son just said, "What's that whistling sound?" And apparently, it rained so hard that it filled up where our gas tank was. And the gas hose had let loose, and so there was just gas everywhere, and we had to like run out and turn it off.
Oh my gosh.
Very exciting. Life in Mexico.
Yeah, life in the mountains, man. That's great. That's fantastic. And then we were kind of talking about some of your plans for the weekend. Let's get a little bit of a peek into the life of Hayden when he's not scaling 6- and 7-figure businesses.
Ooh, it's really exciting times. I'm going to Costco tomorrow.
Yeah. Great.
Play basketball with the family on Sunday. My daughter's graduating primaria here, which is, I guess, sort of like elementary school. So she's got this graduation thing planned, and she's going to 3 days of camp and stuff. So got to prepare for that. Mm-hmm. Just a normal weekend.
And you do spend a lot of time with your family, I know, and do you have any kind of traditions or things that you guys do regularly on like a weekly basis to sort of, I don't know, keep relationships strong and stuff like that?
We're going into a parenting episode. Yeah, I mean, I basically, so the kids go to school, they start early. You know, I wake up at 6:30 in the morning, bring them to school. They're usually back here at home by around 2:30, and pretty much my work day is generally done, or maybe I'll work again later at night. So usually just hang out with the kids and the wife for like 4 or 5 hours. In terms of like traditions, not really. We always eat together. I play video games with the kids all the time. Yeah,
that's awesome.
We can dig into that in another episode, maybe.
Yeah, we just gotta get a little bit of a peek into the life of Kingmaker's co-founder here, but that's great, man. So last that we had you and Devin on the show, that was back in February, which was not long after we launched the current model of Kingmakers. And so it's been a few months now. Would be curious to, let's talk about a little bit of what's happened since then for our listeners. We've done quite a bit, and I know things are growing pretty significantly. For
sure, yeah. It's been a very busy time. I guess we signed up our first partners probably in February-ish. We now have, I think, around 13 partners, with a few more onboarding in June. And we're kind of controlling the onboarding so it's not overwhelming. Initially our goal was to find our partners deals within 3 to 4 months. After about four months, maybe 5 months, get to the point where we've actually issued an LOI. And out of the 6 partners we brought in the first quarter, it looks like we have 4 LOIs issued or being in the process of being issued. So I'd say we're pretty much on track there. Probably the biggest things, we focus on systems a lot, and the biggest areas that we've really scaled has been in the deal flow side. So I think we probably started out, sending maybe 1,000 emails a week type of thing for our outbound deal flow, and we're now sending, I think last week we sent 15,000.
Yeah.
So everyone's inboxes are blowing up.
Yeah.
And then we also now have broker partners who are getting us exclusive deal flow. So like on the deal flow side, I think we've scaled that really well, and that's been a large focus. And we also built up a diligence calculator that makes screening deals a lot more efficient, which I think you're probably going to share at some point in the future. Mm-hmm. Hosted our first workshop. I think there were over 20 people there, basically me and Devin chatting a lot in San Francisco. That was fun. It's been crazy.
Yeah, San Francisco was a fantastic time, by the way. And we do have, if you go to kingmakers.com/workshop, we have new dates up for the next workshop coming up here in September. And if you join our email list too, you might see some emails come through with videos from that workshop as well. It was a lot of fun. I think it was a great time with just sort of enjoying the community with a lot of our partners and prospective partners that a lot of them have now become partners. We had fun too. We went to Alcatraz and went on like a hike and stuff. But if you're listening and really interested in getting into the space, we'd love to see you at the next one. But speaking of that, one of the topics that we spent a good 2 hours covering, probably at the workshop, were the different types of risk associated with these online businesses. And we know that on the show, we talk quite frequently about all the positive aspects of owning these assets. And it's true. You can make a lot of money. You can enjoy a lot of freedom. You can own a really great business without having to go through all the blood, sweat, and tears that it takes to build one from the ground up. But at Kingmakers, part of our DNA is defaulting to transparency. And like everything in life worth doing, there are definitely risks associated with going down this path, and we don't want to just ignore those. So today, that's what we want to talk about. And I will say, like you heard Spencer Haas mention back in episode 5, that if you don't have much experience in this space, one of the best things you can do is partner with somebody who does, which is a lot of the reason why Kingmakers exists. And yes, there are risks, but we understand, and we as in the team at Kingmakers here, we understand on a deep and experiential level what those risks are and how to mitigate them as much as possible, and also how to pull those levers for growth. And so with that said, Hayden, I'm going to let you kind of walk us through some of these risks and talk about how we think about them, and also we'll touch on how we think about growth as well.
Sure. I mean, there are lots of different types of risk. When I think about risk, it's all about identifying the risk during diligence of a deal, and then either not choosing to do a deal because of its risk, or choosing to structure a deal in a way that mitigates its inherent risks. Mm-hmm. So I'll walk through what some of those risks are, and interrupt me if you have any more sort of specific questions. Mm-hmm. And again, this kind of depends greatly on the type of business you're buying. So at Kingmakers, we specialize in buying more sort of media publishers and buying SaaS businesses. Like, those are the two areas we have a lot of deep experience in buying. Things like FBA e-commerce businesses, service businesses, those types of things we don't focus on as much. They might be something that we'd be interested in buying as a tuck-in acquisition to an existing business, or even bootstrapping some of those aspects on top of businesses we buy, but it's not part of the things that we currently perform diligence on. So I'll just kind of start with that.
Yeah.
Platform risk is one large area of risk that exists mainly in SaaS businesses, so software as a service. They can also be niche-based, as in like a niche itself may have an inherent risk. But basically, a platform risk in SaaS is when a business is built on top of another platform that may change its rules in the future, right? In the worst case, this could be based on a business has inherently is scraping data against the rules of a platform, and it requires the scraping of that data for it to continue the business, right? And so that's obviously a large platform risk.
Right.
And another example might be APIs, right? So we've bought businesses that have worked with Facebook's API, and after the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal, Facebook really started shifting up a lot of their requirements, and that was a real pain for us. I mean, we overcame it, but it required a lot of development hours, and it made the service a little less stable for a good few months. So yeah, basically you need to understand the risk, structure your deal accordingly, and mitigate the risk. One example, like the first deal Wired investors ever did was Longtail Pro, which had an inherent platform risk associated with Google's keyword tool. And we identified that risk pretty early on in the process and realized, hey, if the severity of the risk is literally like it's extreme, right? If Google were to substantially change their keyword tool, our tool would become much less useful. So like the first thing we did is we realized, all right, we need to first create a cache, and we need to basically find external data providers. And actually, within probably under 6 months of us buying the business, Google did the change that we were worried about. And if it weren't for the mitigation that we did, the business would have dropped to zero. Like, it literally would have died. And probably I wouldn't be here today because we wouldn't have done a second deal, is my guess. But because we did mitigate it, we built a cloud version of the tool within the first 3 months of buying the business. We cached everything. We found external data providers. It still ended up negatively affecting the business in the sense that we had to move to the cloud version before really it was perfectly ready. So there was probably about 3 to 6 months of just hiccups, but thankfully we had mitigated that risk, and the business is healthy again. So
seriously.
Another large risk is sort of key man risk, right? And key man risk can be people who hold important vendor relationships or sales relationships. Usually this is the owner of the business. Or it can be sometimes like personality risk, so a business that's branded around somebody's personal name. I've structured deals in both of these cases successfully. But again, it's very important to understand where the risk is and structure it accordingly. So having things like earnouts, having a plan where a celebrity owner continues to volunteer content to the site for a 12-month period, having an actual plan in place to transition ownership over time, not just all of a sudden send an email saying, hey, I'm the new owner of the site, right? All of those things are things that you need to identify during diligence and things that you need to structure into your offer.
So we kind of did that with a wired deal. Maybe go into that a bit and how that kind of worked.
Which deal are you referring to?
SBO.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, SBO, that was a slightly different, just because the actual owner, it was a fake persona in that instance. So it wasn't really an issue. We changed the fake persona to another fake persona, simply because the demographic, basically their fake persona had the wrong demographic in mind. But in that instance, it wasn't an issue. Actually, with No Hat Digital, I basically took my face off of that for a period back in probably 2014, and sort of had a partner run it for me. And that was a very successful transition. I literally didn't post for probably over a year, 2 years, something like that. And that business was, actually did much better with the new face. And it was basically probably like a 4-month transition that began with, an interview with one of my most successful students, to like having Ask Me Anythings on the site, and then that person then running the courses. So,
gotcha.
Yeah,
awesome.
Another risk is monetization. So when you have a single, let's use affiliate as an example. When you have a single affiliate whose CPA offer is a lot higher than the industry average, or it's based on volumes. For example, you have a CPA that's paying you $200 per sign up, but it's only paying you $200 per sign up because in the past you were sending 2,000 signups a month, but today you're only sending 1,200. Right. And so you could suddenly get your affiliate manager say, hey, I noticed the decline. We have to lower your CPA back to 160. Right. So this has happened in the past. Usually we actually kind of turn this on its head. And whenever we buy a business, we immediately get on the phone with the affiliate managers and basically say, we want a higher CPA and that we're going to be sending a bunch of, basically investing a bunch of money in it and probably buying other sites in the space. And we generally always get about a 20% uptick by doing that. But it's happened the other way around where, we bought a business and they basically decreased our CPA shortly after buying it. Generally, this is not like super, super extreme risk in the sense that the severity might be, say, revenue declining by 10 to 20%. There are other variables that can also change. Like cookie lengths could change, payment terms could change, and that can affect the business. Payment terms can drastically affect the cash flow of the business. I remember us looking at a business a couple of years ago in the droid space, and that was one where we knew Amazon at the time. They'd hinted at it, but they hadn't released any information. But they had said that they were going to change their affiliate program to, instead of being based on paying you a payout by your total sales, they were going to adjust their payment based on the category of the items sold. And in some categories, basically while we were doing diligence on the deal, Amazon actually released the categories and their amounts. And the biggest decline was in toys, and drones were considered toys. So that business literally took like a 65% nosedive. Right. And in that situation, that basically you just have to move off of Amazon. You have to find other affiliates. Right. But that's not something, we decided not to do the deal because you don't want to just start the deal with that stress. Right.
Yeah, seriously.
We also had a deal that where regulation was pretty, was about to hit that industry, and it was still a little uncertain as to how things would hit it. So there was, we still decided to do the deal, but there were significant sort of contingencies around that regulation. And it was, in this case, it was FDA. In terms of, there's also platform risk in the form of Google traffic risk. And Google traffic, so this is, and most of the businesses we buy get their traffic from Google, and this is my background over the last probably 12 years plus as being sort of in SEO. Basically, Google risks probably combine into two different areas of risk. So one is sort of algorithm updates or penalties, and these updates, they tend to happen a few times a year. I would say if you buy a good site, right? If you buy a site that has strong content, that has clean backlinks, it's old, it's not young, you're probably equally likely to actually get an increase from Google algorithm shifts as you are a decrease. But let's say that there's like a maybe 10% chance per year. This is kind of the way I quantify it, for you to have up to a plus or minus 30% tank or increase right. in Google based on just algorithm updates, right? But when you get more specific, right? When you get more specific about, say, what's the chance of my rankings dropping for a specific keyword, right? So I currently rank for the word, buy websites as an example. And what's the chance of, someone else just outranking me there? Especially now that, the SERP or the search engine result pages are so clouded with, these Google features. It really matters that you're in like the top 3 spots. Not so much it matters that you're in the top 10 anymore. And I would say your likelihood of traffic on any given page dropping by over 50% is probably equal to about 1 to 2% per month. And that's assuming content's not being updated. So if you just buy and hold, and there's probably over a 50% chance that within 3 years your traffic will dip by 50%, which is a large risk. I would say this probably, if you do no updates to the content whatsoever and it's in a competitive space, it might be more than 2%. If you do updates and you're in a non-competitive space, it's probably close to 0. And this is part of our diligence sort of formula, is we take a look at where all the traffic is coming to, and that is it being distributed across a strong number of landing pages, and then what. Basically, based on that, what is our risk of traffic dropping over time?
Yeah, makes sense. And talk a little bit about what you mean by updating content. So
SEO used to be thought of as, you do it once and then forget about it. But really, SEO over the past few years has become a lot more iterative. So you publish content and then you update and improve upon that content regularly. So that's one of the divisions that we have set up that sort of applies to all our sites and our partner sites. Basically, identifies what is sort of the pillar content on these sites and how do we just consistently improve upon them, right? And then doing so, just having fresh content generally makes your rankings go up. You'll generally get certain features on the SERPs that will increase your click-through rate as well. And then as you're adding more content to pages over time, you also just get more and more long tail traffic from it as well. Yeah. So, perfect. Yeah, it's very important. Anyone who has a site who's listening to this, I highly recommend you set up a process to, continually add content to your existing sort of money pages. In terms of diligence on that risk, I would say try to make sure that no individual page is generating over 20% of your revenue. If it is, and you want to add in some kind of earnout to mitigate around it, and make sure you add more money pages and make those new money pages like large backlinking focuses. Obviously, update your top content often. Also, answer boxes. Over, I think it's over 60% of informational searches now contain an answer box, and that number is still going up. So it's really important that you make sure that the site you're buying doesn't hold substantive answer boxes, because the possibility of you losing that is probably 10 times the possibility of losing a ranking. Right. I'd say it's probably closer to 10 to 20% per month. So, make sure that when you you do your diligence to make sure you're not getting traffic from an answer box, because that traffic is likely to decline, up to 75% within a year.
And an answer box is basically when you're typing something in Google and it's the top result, and it's kind of, you click the drop down and there's a little bit of text, right?
Yeah, and there's usually like 6 steps, right? It's often done in steps. It's originally designed for people who were supposed to do voice search, so that you could actually get a voice response.
Oh, interesting.
And then finally, I always say, the best risk mitigation is, I treat this business as a numbers game, right? Look at more deals, do the deal flow and sourcing to get as many deals to look at, due diligence on all those deals, and you will find a gem, right? That being said, you may find a great deal that you want to do, and you need to mitigate around that risk. So you can apply all the stuff I talked about here to mitigate around the risk. But then secondly, you can counter any risk by trying to grow the deal. And so for Wired, as an example, I would say probably 6 or 7 deals in, we realized, okay, I think our bread and butter are these publisher deals, partially because we can create divisions or departments with actual procedure that will predictably grow these deals without requiring great talent, right? SaaS businesses, you really kind of need a really, really smart GM who's willing to just play with different things until it grows. Whereas with these publisher businesses, it's literally just, let's go through this process and use this bag of tricks, right, or this trick within our bag, and we know that this has probably a 50% chance of growing this business by 20 to 30%. And then we just had 4 or 5 departments, each with that sort of 50% chance of growing this thing by 20 to 30%. And that generally meant that the majority of the deals that we bought ended up growing, somewhere between 50 and 100%, in some cases more.
And what are those departments?
So it was because most of our traffic comes from Google. We had a backlinking department. We had a on-page SEO department. We had a content department. So that's all SEO based. We had a Crow department, and Crow is conversion rate optimization. That applies to all deals, including SaaS. And those were sort of the 4 main departments. We also had an email marketing department. And with Kingmakers, we have the exact same departments plus a couple more sort of smaller bags of tricks. And we're working directly with basically contractor partners that we used and have been using for 3 or 4 years now.
Which, if you don't mind, going into those, I think that would be interesting, just high level, what those departments are and sort of how we think about constantly adding to this bag of tricks as we just continue to learn new stuff. I mean, most of our team is on the phone for several hours a week just with sellers of various businesses that we're vetting for our partner buyers. And so we're constantly exposed to different ways of doing things and different models and stuff. And so maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So do you mean talk about the existing departments or talk about future departments?
Yeah, future departments.
Okay. So we always have, basically we have 2 people who are kind of both in this sort of R&D role who work directly with me to prove out or do basically these minimum viable product versions of new departments we find. And this is actually how we generally find or build up these departments in the past. So usually it'll start with someone, usually me, doing diligence on a business and realizing that, hey, this business has something in it, on how it was generating traffic or how it was monetizing that I actually think could apply to the majority of the businesses we buy. And so once you've sort of discovered that, I would work with a person. We have a weekly call, and basically I would try to prove this out, usually manually, and fail as fast as possible. And a lot of the time it fails, a lot of the time it succeeds. When it does succeed, it's then up to us to sort of actually turn this into proper procedure and start applying it to multiple deals. Right now we're probably looking at about 3 to 4 different spaces, some of which we've actually found partners to work basically with our partners and actually not charge upfront, but have some kind of revenue share. And a couple of which we're kind of building out the procedure ourselves, and we'll be looking to find basically an agency partner that can fulfill that procedure cheaply.
Yeah, awesome. And part of that too is they're generating like ROI focused reports even prior to the acquisition too, right?
Yeah, so I mean that's one of the things that, when we work with providers, I actually often prefer not to work with people who already have a business, but rather it's people who are much more procedure oriented and good managers and good hirers. And basically I design the reporting around it, and it's always ROI based. So like our content group that we work with basically designs all of the content around ROI, publishes our ROI on every cohort of content published, on a monthly basis, and basically tries to improve upon her processes. And it's great because it keeps them super, super accountable, and it's very easy for our partners to see, whether or not something is generating return. And most agencies you work with will not want to do that. Any other questions on the growth side, or?
Let's move on to different types of risk mitigation.
So aside from growing deals, aside from structuring deals around risk mitigation, you can basically diversify across multiple assets. You can use Google rankings to dominate other traffic sources, which is something we've been looking into quite a bit. I guess I'll dig into that a bit more with some examples. So you buy a business that has Google rankings, it's getting a bunch of traffic. The most basic might be email. So if you are getting, let's call it 100,000 visitors per month, and we were to then set up, the Crow department sets up strong content upgrades to email, you can probably get, depending on how your traffic is distributed, but let's say you have a single page that gets 50,000 visitors per month. You could probably, with a content upgrade, get somewhere between 5 and 15% opt-in rate on that page, right? So let's assume 10% for simplicity's sake. You would basically be getting 5,000 emails a month as long as your Google rankings exist. So one of the things that we always did as soon as we bought a deal, because most people don't do email marketing well, is we would basically start up a strong sort of opt-in with content upgrade, and then basically lead that into an autoresponder, and we would probably, in many cases, we would see the ability to replace the revenue of the deal from Google with revenue from email, promoting affiliate offers or promoting your own products, if that's something you wanted to do, within 18 months, right? That's kind of been our goal. And it always depends. It depends on whether you're creating your own product. It depends on the niche, et cetera. But generally speaking, it was always under 2 years. And another way you can do that is, let's say with FBA, right, which is fulfillment by Amazon, which is basically, you order product from China and sell it on Amazon. Amazon's algorithms, similar to Google, are based on things like conversion rate to the page. They're based on the number of sales and the sales rate. They're based on the percentage of reviews, that type of thing. And if you own a publisher and you bootstrap a product that publisher is basically promoting, you can effectively kind of spike the tip jar for Amazon, right? So if you own a publisher that's getting, again, let's say 50,000 visitors a month, and it's around a product type term like best kayak reviews or something like that, and you basically design a kayak or you design a kayak paddle, right? And you send all that traffic from your page to your product. That product is going to have a high conversion rate. It's going to start getting sales. It's you can also grab your email list and you can discount the product to your email list, up to 49% or something, and still basically game it in such a way that you're now going to rank organically for kayak paddles on Amazon itself. And so you're using those Google rankings to dominate Amazon, and now your risk is being mitigated across 2 traffic channels, right? And then a third example of using Google rankings to dominate other traffic sources would be, for example, Facebook ads, right? So if you have an affiliate, this is something we're working on right now, actually, sort of in the R&D department. If you have an affiliate product that allows you to post back your sales into a tracking pixel, you can basically have Facebook generate a lookalike audience for you for free without having to invest all that money into pay-per-click. And then from there, you can have a really, really efficient pay-per-click campaign on Facebook. And again, you're mitigating across your traffic risk now across 2 channels, which would be Facebook PPC and Google.
That's nuts.
And there are countless ways that you can do this, but these are sort of the ones we're playing with right now, or we have partners who are working on.
That's nuts, man. I love it. And then when you talk about diversifying across multiple assets, maybe go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so basically, the more businesses you buy, the more you're mitigating your risk, right, or diversifying your risk. So that was one of the focuses of Wired and why we bought so many things so quickly. Is we realized it was very strong mitigation. Generally speaking, you don't want to buy too much too quickly because it might be hard for you to actually manage it. But we do recommend that everyone we work with treats this like a portfolio, right? Not I want to do one business and be done with it, but I want to do one business, sort of sink my teeth into it, get a feel for it, and then do business 2, and then do business 3.
And when you're talking about building a portfolio, what are your thoughts around when to buy sort of complementary businesses and when to diversify across, different niches and stuff like that?
I think it depends. It's always better to be strategic with your purchase, right? It's just, it may not always be available. And so I would recommend that people diversify, even if it's a separate niche, as long as they're financially able to do so. I still think that's a smarter move than just holding one thing, or even holding one thing and waiting forever to try to find that perfect number 2 purchase that makes number 1 by default 50% more valuable, right? That being said, 100% you should be putting the effort into trying to find tuck-in acquisitions.
Gotcha. And then there's deal structure too, as well, which you've alluded to a couple times already. For instance, talking about an earnout, but maybe go into that a little bit and maybe talk about, without giving, URLs away, how we're, I guess, currently structuring some deals, and, maybe go into depth a little bit about the earnout and how exactly that can be structured as well.
Earnouts are usually, earnouts or holdbacks, however you want to kind of classify them, are usually the way you would structure deals around risk. And we've definitely done several deals there. Generally speaking, an earnout will be basically it's contingent on something, and effectively you pay the earnout only if that's contingency holds, right? So it could be contingent on traffic, it could be contingent on revenue, it could be contingent on a key person continuing to work, it could be contingent on a contract not expiring, or a key vendor not leaving. Generally speaking, people prefer to keep earnouts to 12 months maximum. That being said, we've structured several deals with earnouts over 2 to 3 years.
And in your experience, is this something that sellers are generally pretty open to, or is it quite a turnoff?
They're open to it. No one likes it, obviously. It depends on how eager they are to sell. I would say because we're doing a lot of our own sort of exclusive deal flow, and there's not competing bids, people are open to it. When you get into a situation where there are competing bids, people are much less open to it because they know that if they just wait, they're likely to receive an all-cash offer.
Gotcha. Awesome. Cool. Well, we're about at the 30-minute mark here, and so thanks for going over all that. I think that's going to be very helpful for people. Do you, before we let you go, do you have any parting advice for listeners who maybe haven't bought a business yet but are considering, or maybe they have, in regards to just risk mitigation and growth? Just any parting advice there?
Do your homework. Definitely, I would say if you're just starting out in the space, you should go on to Flippa, go look at a whole bunch of deals, and you should just basically design your own little calculator on how you think you should sort of score deals. And don't do your first deal until you've at least scored a dozen deals. because in different spaces, so that you can understand better the risks associated with what you're buying. And it doesn't matter if that deal is, a business that's for sale for $10,000 or $10 million. Generally, the risks are going to be very similar. That would be my advice. And obviously, if this is your first time doing it, you should, if you can, partner with someone who's done it before.
Awesome. Well, folks, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around the most, and today you've been hanging out with Hayden and Kylan, learning how to build your business empire. For more information or to get in touch, head over to kingmakers.co, and always remember to build beyond business. Hey, business buyers, if you loved what you heard today and you feel like we've earned it, subscribe to the podcast and head over to iTunes to leave us a 5-star rating and review. This helps us out a ton, and we love to read your comments. Thanks so much.